Here's a quick tip on cutting a cove on the table saw. You have two options of setting your fence. You can set it behind the blade like this, or you could set your fence in front of the blade. The reason why we don't want to set a single fence behind the blade, as we push it through, the cut pushing the workpiece this way. And that means that we have to put a lot of force to counteract that blade against this fence. And we don't want to have to do that because that decreases accuracy. It's not as safe. So if we put the fence in front of the blade, like this, we can now run our piece, and this piece is counteracting the force of the blade pushing into our workpiece, and we can push it through with a lot more control. So here's a quick tip on cutting with your speed square. You want to place your speed square on the back end of your cut as you're moving forward. This way you can pull the speed square towards you as you cut, counteracting the force of pushing forward. If you have the speed square on this side of the board, you're trying to push the speed square into the board to hold it while pushing the saw into the board, which is both pushing in that direction, so you have to try to stabilize the board. So putting it on the back side, pulling it towards you while pushing the saw through is a much better way of doing it. Hey guys, here's a quick look at the sled that I use for cutting all the cookies. This is just a really rudimentary little sled here with a scrap piece of wood for the runner, some OSB and a 2x4. Just cut it to fit snugly in the slot. Put it in, I waxed it up, and just slide it through and cut the cookies. Real simple, real easy, but effective. Here's a look at one of my favorite rasps, the Shinto rasp. It's a Japanese rasp. It has a coarse side and a fine side. Coarse side is for very fast stock removal, and the fine is to fine tune any areas that you've worked. You can see here I have an arch in the wood, and watch how fast the rasp takes it out. Here's a quick tip if you need to adjust the length of a screw. Sometimes it can be really hard to hold the screw firm enough while you're trying to cut it with a hacksaw. So what I do is I get 2 scrap pieces of wood, put the screw between them, put them in a vise, lock the vise tightly. This doesn't damage the screw at all, but holds it firmly enough to start cutting. Hey guys, here's a couple tips on getting the most out of your planer. After you've jointed a face flat, we're going to take it to the planer to thickness it and make a parallel edge. In this case, I have a 1 1/4 inch piece wood, and I want to thickness it down to 1 inch. And by removing an equal amount on both sides, I can help prevent this wood from warping or cupping in the future by relieving the stress equally. So we'll just start with the jointed side, run it a couple times till I get a flat reference on the unjointed side, then we'll start flipping it each time until we get down to our thickness. Here's a quick tip on edge jointing a board. When you face joint, you use the table as a reference. When you edge joint, you use the fence as a reference. This is important because that means all of our pressure needs to be against the fence, which is not a lot. You don't want to joint a board up here or be pushing with 2 hands or be putting any pressure this way because the board can tilt this way. So you need to have pressure within the boundaries of the fence. That's why a small fence on portable joiners can be a little tricky, and you might need to use a feather board because you get your hands really close. The other thing we want to do is make sure we have even pressure straight across. We don't want to be pushing down because this board is not flat, so that'll distort it. So very little pressure both here and in the back, and we push straight across the knives, and we keep consistent pressure right here as we push. If the board is really long and we have to hold it from the top, we still don't push down. We have pressure here. We have our open hand here, not resting on the board, and we just use it to slide it along, and that'll give you a perfectly square edge. Here's some tips when doing final hand planing on a piece. Now this is after it's already been jointed, squared, and milled up. Maybe you've done the joinery and you're just cleaning up some final pieces of it or getting out any marks. I see a lot of people start here and they start going like this, and it feels nice and smooth, which is one operation of the plane, but we also need to keep everything square and flat and straight. And we can't do it in that manner. When we get down to final planing, it's more finesse, and this is where the skill of planing really comes in hand. Is we need to take controlled strokes, one side, the other side, overlapping my first piece. If this were too wide, I'd have to do 3 passes or 4. But nonetheless, it's still a very light, controlled cut that I'm taking to get a nice fine shaving, making sure it's full width across both sides and remaining 90 degrees.